Right. I am thrilled to welcome to the Sasuke podcast, Aramide Fields. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
All right. Thank you so much, Helen. And thank you to your listeners. I've been a listener for a while myself, and so I'm thrilled to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Aramide Fields. I am an in-house attorney for a Fortune 500 company that does automotive safety products based here in Tokyo. And I have 3 kids. I've lived in Japan for about 7-8 years, originally trained in the US and have also worked as a lawyer in the US.
Wow. Let's just start off with how old the kids are, just for the listeners' perspective.
Yeah. So my oldest is 7.5, the half very important to her.
Oh, yes. Halves are very
right?
important at that age. I think I might start adding my halves back into my age.
Why not?
And quarters as well.
Quarters. I mean, she wants it to go by month actually, so but I won't break it down that much. And then I also have 3.5-year-old twins, a boy and girl.
Right. Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So we can probably talk a little bit more about the joys of being a working mother a little bit later on as well. Let's start off though with your word of the year.
Yes, my word of the year, you've already signaled it a little bit, is joy.
Oh, yes.
It is joy, which I chose. I mean, it's so funny, like the last couple of years, I've been a little bit hit or miss about choosing a word. Maybe I choose one at the beginning of the year and it kind of dwindles out by like June, I've forgotten what it is. Joy was sort of calling me before the year began. And I knew that January 1, I was hitting the word joy. And fortunately, it's been staying with me. So yeah, it's been a great word for me to have throughout the year.
Do you have an idea of what made joy call to you?
Yeah, it's basically, it's something that I've sort of always, I mean, well, maybe you can tell, I kind of have like a joyful, I think, personality. I'm, generally very optimistic about things, about life. And there's a particular dance form that I do that has joy, but it was feeling a little bit inaccessible for a couple of years, just, pandemic and life and kids and it was popping up in ways here and there, just as just kind of reminders about the importance of it to me. So reconnecting with the dance form that I was doing, where joy is really a big part of it. Recognizing that my kids were just like such precious ages, and to be, kind of tapping into the joy that they bring. Really, I can do that on like a daily basis. So it was just, I wanted to be very intentional about not just, oh, here it's popped up and let me enjoy it while it's here, but remembering that sort of every day I have the option to choose joy. In every moment, essentially, I have the option to choose joy, and wanting to make sure that I was just calling that in and bringing it into life and to work and, the way that I interact with people. And yeah, it's been fantastic.
Well, let's come to bringing the joy into work in a moment. I'm curious about the dance form, though. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Are you sure? And I think we only have 30 minutes. I might go too far, but the short version. So it's a mind-body form of dance fitness called Nia. And it was created by a husband and wife couple in the US, and who had basically been to kind of jazzercise and no pain, no gain type of aerobics, and realized people are getting hurt. We need to find a new way. They went on this journey to create a new dance form and brought in lots of different practices. And it's 30 years old or so now. I've been doing it for about 20 years. And the first principle of it is the joy of movement. And the idea is that you can always find joy in movement. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be painful. In fact, it can be quite joyful. So that's, just something that I'm completely passionate about. I used to teach it on the side of being a lawyer. I would, do my law during the week, and then on the weekends go and teach Nia. So it's a little bit harder for me to do here in Japan, but I still am able to do, just in my living rooms, doing Nia every now and then as well.
What makes it hard for you in Japan?
That there aren't as many classes, and then just pandemic as well, just being
Zoom classes. Could you not do
class, that's true. And then there was a time actually that was one of the ways that I did connect with it, was really because the pandemic, things did move online, and it was rare. At least I was not able to find online classes with Mia before the pandemic. So that actually was really one way that I started to tap back into it, which has been fantastic.
Well, that sounds fascinating. If you wouldn't mind sharing if you've got a link or anything that you can share for listeners who are interested to know more, and we can pop that in the show notes, that would be great. I'd love to know more about that. I'd love a little dance.
Well, yes, I've seen you dancing on some videos on LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm a fellow dancer at heart. I can feel it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about joy in the workplace, because we touched on this a little bit before we hit the record button. And quite often, in fact, so there's a little story connected to this. I was sharing this somewhere recently, and I forget where. It was in the feed. It was on the podcast before, on the feedback episode, that I got my colleague and we got some quite harsh feedback because we were dancing in the breaks during a 3-day training workshop, and this was considered unprofessional by one of the participants. So what are your thoughts on bringing joy into the workplace?
Yeah. I mean, for me, that is definitely one of the shifts that I have made. A little bit has to do with the transition in work that I made. So for 15 years, I used to work at a very big law firm, fantastic place, a lot of wonderful people. I think, though, I had kind of got into my head, not by anyone else telling me necessarily, but that, I had this image of what a lawyer is, and it's like serious. And, I was a litigator, which means, you got like conflict and disputes. And I think I always sort of felt like I had to be that sort of serious, just what a lawyer should look like. And even though in meetings with colleagues and certain, friends at work, they would know that I'm joyful. It's like, not that I was always straight and unhappy. But I think I was definitely conscious of trying to sort of like tamp down things about joy, and maybe not telling everybody about being a NIA teacher on the side where I'm doing this like joyful dancing about. And what I found is that I then changed jobs. I'm in a new environment, and I think I, had to kind of suss out what's the environment here. And I just realized if I continue to kind of hold back in the things that naturally bring me joy about work and my daily interactions with people, whether that's, we're hopping on a Zoom call and I'm going to ask, how's your day going? How are things? And I really mean it. Like, I'd really like to know, and maybe have a little bit of an exchange. And so, continuing to have relationships with people just beyond like the work. And for me, it makes my day more enjoyable. And I think it helps me build relationships with people because I'm not holding back from what naturally allows me to connect with people and the work that I'm doing. So joy in the workplace for me, of course, it's not always fitting. It's not always appropriate. Sometimes things can be very serious. And so, I'm not going to necessarily dance in and, be happy, smiley. But it means, for me, at least, that I'm not going to hold back from maybe my natural inclination to have a little levity, have a little smile in my interactions and how I go about doing things.
Have you had any situations, if I can ask, where it has been a problem, like if you've been too joyful or anything like that?
It's one of those things. I can't think of a situation where someone actually said, it's too much, like tone it down. I think I was regulating myself. I was my own cop, if you will, and telling myself it's too much. This is what it's supposed to look like. And if you bring something else, then you're not that. Like, you're not acting appropriately to the role or to the, to the environment that you're in. So fortunately, I've not received any negative feedback, even since, sort of embracing joy over the last year. It was really just this self-talk and this is not right and I shouldn't and all these things, which I found, like a lot of things, like you're kind of like your own worst critic and holding yourself back from these things, that can naturally, again, like make it's easier for me to not hold back joy. It was taking energy for me to like, oh, wait, I'm excited, but can I tell everybody I'm excited? It was taking energy for me to hold back, which was then maybe not allowing me to be as creative or contributing to something or speaking up in a meeting or like literally celebrating a success. You know, I might be the one who's going to like, yay, you know, we've done something well, team, like, let's celebrate that. And maybe it's not for everybody, but that's okay too. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Right. Yeah. And when I think back, probably there's only that one situation that I can recall where being joyful has rubbed one person the wrong way, but everybody else was fine with it. It was just that one person. I mean, maybe there are other people who think that it's not appropriate, but we're busy being joyful and we don't notice.
Exactly.
And what about, I don't know, and I'm kind of just, you know, throwing these questions at you, but can you think of any situations where that bringing in the joy has really helped a situation for you?
Where it's helped. I mean, I guess I don't have a specific situation, but I think the overall daily enjoyment that I get out of sort of, you know, life and work is elevated. Because again, I'm not focusing on, and I have to say that, I mean, maybe there's the connecting to joy is just maybe part of a bigger thing of me being a little bit more authentic in my everydayness. And I think, so I think maybe it's not strictly joy. It is really just, can I show up as myself? Can I show up as myself here, you know, on this podcast? Can I show up as myself when I'm posting on LinkedIn? Can I show up as myself when I'm on a meeting with executives advising on legal matters? Like that, I think kind of across the board has been something that has helped me, because I'm not using mental energy to show up as I think that I'm supposed to show up.
This is very interesting.
I just get to show up.
Right. This is really interesting because it's kind of hard work to sort of hold yourself back and not be the real you. Exactly. Would you be willing to talk a little bit more about what the authenticity means to you? So obviously you said joy is kind of a part of it. If you're willing to talk a little bit more broadly about what that authenticity means to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I guess, what are other things? So I definitely used to have a fear that, like, if I asked a question, that it would show that, like, I'm not smart enough or I don't have the understanding. And then, I mean, again, there's so many things, like, no one said these things to me. No one told me, don't ask questions. No one told me if you ask a question, it means you're not intelligent and you're not capable. But I just sort of, I don't know, I internalized, felt it, was misguided. But I've worked with several very smart people and been in rooms with them when they are able to say, I don't understand. Okay, we are all in this room and everyone seems to be completely on the same page, but I don't understand. Can somebody break this down for me? So I think I sort of just, one of the ways that I've become more authentic is being able to raise my hand and say, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? Or, and maybe it's not even I don't understand, but, I have a question, like, I'm curious about this. So leaning into curiosity has been huge for me in the past couple of years, to just, I'm not gonna worry about, like, what are people going to say or think, and really just, just trusting that, one, if I have a question, probably someone else does as well. Or if it doesn't, it can kind of solidify for everyone else, like, are we on the same page? Do we all have the same understanding? I think that's been another part of the authenticity, like just showing up with the curiosity that I have in mind and knowing that I'm coming from a good place and I'm wanting to understand so that I can do the work that I need to do.
Yeah. Oh, this is so great. And I'm sure this is going to resonate with a lot of listeners. It certainly does for me as well, because I was also that person who I was kind of I hesitated to ask questions. And the turning point for me was years ago when I was talking with a colleague, and she said to me, she's like, Helen, I feel like you're just not interested in anything I say. And I was like, what? But you never ask any questions. And I was just like, I was horrified because I thought, oh, wow, is that the way it comes across? That I thought I was being a good listener by just sort of listening.
Right. Yes. And nodding along. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Coming from, being, I think that there's a lot of similarities with the British culture and the Japanese culture of sort of the kind of the listening to people, not asking questions so much, but she was from a different cultural background. And it was like, it just seemed rude to her that I wasn't asking questions, that I wasn't showing curiosity, as you mentioned. So that really was an eye-opener for me, and I started to ask questions. And also, exactly as you've said, realizing that if I'm not sure about something, if I have a question, probably other people in the room have that question too. So I really hope that listeners who have hesitated to ask questions in the past will take a little bit of courage from this.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, speak up. I think it's important to speak up.
Yeah, it gives space to other people as well, then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Love it so much. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the Sasaka success cycle. And so we have our 4 phases around self-care, around planning, around communication and productivity. So what's an area where you have had challenges in the past, maybe? And you can share a little bit of a story around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the self-care, the care for you has been a critical survival skill, if I'm quite honest, of the last, pandemic and beyond. And I wish I had found this earlier for myself and really, had found what works for me sooner than I did. So taking us back to, fall, well, it's actually 2020. So post-pandemic, the start of the pandemic, spring, summer, I was looking for a different job opportunity. So going through a job change, we had, of course, a pandemic happening, thought my husband had COVID in the early days, still not sure, but it was just meant that I was 100% doing almost everything for my kids, for the 3 kids. And it was just a very challenging time. And I felt myself kind of untethered, unhinged, just not in a very good place. And I remember getting to a point where I was like, all right, I'm just going to try to do something for myself of like 5 minutes of yoga a day. Like if I can just find 5 minutes to do of yoga. And I found the easiest way to do that was in the mornings before everybody else wakes up. So it means waking up early, getting in even 5 minutes, which sometimes became 20, 25, but that just committing to that for myself, it was a game changer for me, because I started it and then I kind of got hooked on it. It was like, I feel better. My days go better. And certain days when I don't do it, I can tell the difference. So really having like a nice morning routine that gets me started for my day, for myself, it's like, it just like kind of gets me right to go on for the rest of my day.
What about, because you have 3 kids. I have one who's older now, but from when she was young, there would be those days where I had my morning routine plan. And I hear this from a lot of my, clients and the women in my group programs. You have your morning routine, and then there's one or several kids going, mommy, and there's some crisis going on. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah. So this morning, for example, my morning routine did not happen. I was up at 5:30, but it wasn't for my morning routine. It was because one of my twins got up. And so for me, it's like, it's an intention. It is what I aim to do, but it doesn't always work. It's not always, so letting go of like the perfection of, oh my gosh, if it didn't happen, what now? Sometimes it means that the way that I cope with it is I've done yoga with like one of my twins, like walking around over the yoga mat. And again, it's not perfect. It's not pretty, but it is, I know for me, it's better than nothing. So sometimes, again, just letting go of that perfect ideal version of what I want my like morning time to be, to at least have something that approximates what I know will make me feel better for the rest of the day.
Yeah, definitely the letting go when it doesn't go as planned, or just doing your best, I think are two of those really key themes. Yeah. So what I'm just thinking around our topics of, I keep wanting to go back to the joy topic because I think it's so important.
It's a good one. I can go on.
That's right. I tell you what I wanted to talk about as well. Is the fact that because we connected very much on LinkedIn. I first heard you on Catherine O'Connell's podcast on Lawyer on Air, and then this fact that you started using the hashtag joy on LinkedIn. Can you tell us a little bit, because you said to me that you had a little bit of hesitation around putting that on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that goes back to my sort of, what are lawyers supposed to be like? And, this, all these things, these labels that I still have. So, I had my hashtag of the things that I talk about. So women in law is one of them. I'm the vice president of Women in Law Japan. I'm involved in a lot of organizations for women in law, in-house counsel, and I'm in an in-house counsel role. And one day I just thought, it's like, well, I talk about joy. I was adding joy to some of my posts, even about women in law and in-house counsel. And I'm like, and it's my word for the year. It's like, so why wouldn't I make it a hashtag too? And I did. And then I took a screenshot of it and I circled that joy was next to lawyers. And I posted that on LinkedIn about how it was, for me, it sort of, there was this sort of, quiet change that I made, but it kind of felt revolutionary to fully embrace joy and lawyers can go hand in hand. And then I posted about that, and was just so thrilled about the response, because what I love is sort of normalizing conversations that I feel like I can't be the only one who has this thought. I can't be the only one out there who feels like a lawyer who wants to be joyful, sometimes has these joyful moments, but feels like, oh, maybe this is not okay here. And so the more that I can be some voice out there for someone who says, this is okay. Yes, you can be joyful in your work. Yes, you can be joyful as a lawyer. I'm happy to be that person having that conversation so that others can feel like it's okay for you too. So that was the joy post that I think maybe led to this conversation today, because just kind of that leaning into that, I think, is really important and really resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah. And what you say about normalizing, that's something that I'm so passionate about, is normalizing, because there's so many things that, and going back to what you were saying earlier about the authenticity, a lot of people are, hold back from their authenticity, even though they're using so much energy to hold back from their authenticity. And the more that we can start to normalize some of these things, and so that people are realizing it's not just you, it's actually these challenges that you've got, this fear of asking questions, this fear of looking unprofessional if you're too happy at work.
Absolutely.
Those kind of things. I love the making things normalized. It's so wonderful. So I'm kind of flip-flopping a little bit back and forth on topics, but there's so many where I believe that you have value that you can bring to the listeners, and I wanted to go back to the just for the mothers again. What's something that you have learned as a mother that you wish you knew earlier as a mother?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? Where do I begin? I mean, I feel like learning it's a daily lesson in like life. I learn so much from I learn from my kids, I learn about myself, I learn about the world around me. I think one thing that I just can keep coming back to again, like my twins are so different. They are like night and day personality wise. And a lot of it, I mean, the way that they approach life, my daughter is like, she's going to dive right in every opportunity. She doesn't know how she's going to figure it out, but she's going to jump off the cliff and hopefully find her wings on the way. My son is the cautious. He doesn't want to go. He's going to take, but then as soon as he figures out the way to do it, then it's like, he's going to do it again and again. And what that has taught me is that people just have their own unique ways of approaching life and things. And sometimes you just cannot change it. So what you have to do is understand what is their approach and then work with that. I can't force my son to be an all-in kind of person. I can't force my daughter to, I mean, sometimes you can, you know, physical barriers like slow her down, but their natural inclination. And so, you know, I think of like in the workplace, if I have colleagues who are sort of the all-in person, or I have colleagues who are the like, I don't know about this, like take it slow. It is definitely allows me to, it reminds me of like the importance of taking into considerations people's different approach to life, which I think I was understanding of before, but it's like this very visual reminder that I have every day, that everyone comes with their own set of understanding and belief, and you have to kind of know what they are to be able to, you know, work and navigate that accordingly.
Right. And yeah, and accept your kids as they are as well.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Cannot change them. I might have tried. No, but cannot change them. Yeah.
and also like the you know, how do you see like you being a role model to your kids? What are your thoughts around that?
Oh gosh. I guess it's not something that I necessarily think of very often, but every now and then my older daughter will say something like she'll ask if I'm like, are you the boss of that? Like, are you, you know, like she has this sort of like puts me on a pedestal that I sometimes I don't, you know, really recognize until she has these questions about like, oh, well, you're the boss, right? Like, you know, and like she understands that I'm, you know, vice president for Women in Law Japan. In her mind, it's almost like I'm running the whole show. like it's mine. And I'm like, is that how this works? So it's something that I take, of course, very seriously, how I am guiding, you know, their lives. The role model aspect, it's definitely present, but I can say, I guess it's not something that I think about that often.
Well, I love the fact that you are role modeling joy for your kids. I think that is absolutely, that is so wonderful. So as we're recording this, we're coming towards the end of a year. How about next year? What do you have as like, you know, what would make next year just a great year for you?
That's a good question. I haven't thought ahead. I will say that I think by this time last year, I knew that joy was going to be my word. You know, my word, I actually had 2 words the previous year of curiosity and action. Again, like leaning into the curiosity and also just like being decisive, like taking action on things, as opposed to like, I'm kind of a study all the things and sit and ruminate before I make a decision. It was more, a little bit more like, let's like take action and move forward. So I don't know, I'm still, I'll give it some time to see if a word calls out to me. Have you chosen a word? I'm curious for next year.
I do have a word. I think I'm going to keep it a secret at the moment, but the word came to me quite, it came to me strongly and quite recently. But even beyond the word, any kind of things that you want to do, or, you know, what would make the year itself a great year for you?
Gosh, I think this is indication that I need to work on which phase is it of the planning? The planning. I can't think of anything in particular. And actually, so this also kind of goes back to like the transformation that I've had the last couple of years. I think for my entire life, for the first, 15 years of my career, and you know, before that, like as a student, I was always thinking of like, what's the next thing I'm going to like what's the next target, what's the you know, what degree am I going to get, what school, and all these things. And really in the last few years, I have come to say, let's just be comfortable where we are.
That's
and it's not settling, but just being comfortable without always projecting, aiming, reaching, because sometimes that actually can take away from the joy. Of course, I want to do great in the things that I'm doing, always striving for my best, but not always looking and trying to reach some next rung on a ladder, so to speak.
Right, because it's about whether it's something that it's a goal and it's like you've got to work towards the goal, versus it's a goal and it's exciting to sort of move towards the goal.
Yeah. So probably I could use some, I don't know, visioning of like what some goal could be, but yeah, right now I'm really good. I'm really good where I am. So yeah, just keep on keeping on.
That's great. And very often it's when you're in that sort of relaxed and joyful state that new ideas and inspiration start to come to you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. Oh, love it so much. What was I going to ask you? I had a question that I was going to ask about. What do you find, what do you love most about Japan?
Oh my gosh, Helen, that's such a big question. What do I love most? I can't. The cleanliness, the food, the order. I mean, I've got a long list of things. What do I love the most? One thing I love, so, being in Tokyo and having access to public transportation, I love the variety of experiences that I can get. Really, I mean, just walking out the front door, you can get the traditional, temples, shrines, you can get, just wild technology and innovation. And then let's get on a train and go somewhere. And you've got, onsen, and you've got, a beach. There's like so much that is really accessible within a fairly, short distance, and then just offer such a variety of experiences. Just one of the many things that, also a great place to raise kids. Fantastic. My kids are fully all in Japanese. They believe they are Japanese, and I have to say, well, you're American. It's complicated. So you're American. You've lived all of your life in Japan for the most part, but so anyway, but it's a great place to raise kids as well.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Totally. If you were not a lawyer, what would you be?
Probably a dance instructor.
I kind of thought that might be coming.
I mean, there have definitely been times when I'm like, would I throw it all away and open a dance studio? Not throw it away, but take a change, pivot and do that. But although I have to say, as much as I don't know if I would love like the business of like owning a studio. Maybe if I could just show up somewhere and get paid to dance Nia all the time, I'm up for that.
Good. I love the sound of that. So I think we're going to be getting to, we talked a little bit longer than we even planned to, but there was some topics that I wanted to talk with you about. I did want to also ask you just one more final topic, and then we'll see if there's any other things that you want to share. But I know that you are very keen on listening to podcasts. So what's another favorite podcast or a few podcasts that you really love and you'd like to recommend?
A few. Oh my, well, so Lawyer on Air, Catherine O'Connell's fantastic podcast. I was a guest on that. But yeah, I love hearing the stories of amazing women. She's had some men as well in the legal community in Japan, and all the different paths that you can take. Because I think there's a lot of questions about, well, like even for me, like how does an American lawyer start practicing law in Japan, and how does that work? I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, so her two podcasts, Unlocking Us and Dare to Lead. Just good old standbys. And yes, I've also started listening to the Sasaka podcast quite often. And congratulations, by the way, on 200 episodes. That's phenomenal success. So those are some of my favorites.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate all the guests that we've had in the past, and so I hope you'll when we celebrate episode 300, I hope you'll contribute a little audio clip like we've been doing. That's become a tradition.
Happy to do that. Yeah.
So what else would you love to share with our Sasaka podcast listeners today?
I think maybe just one parting thing. So again, thank you for having me on your podcast. Something else that I've been sort of for myself thinking about the last year, 2 years, is that I think that there's power in everyone's story. So just sharing what you've been through, what your experiences are, whether it's as a working mom, as a lawyer. I mean, there's so many ways to share so that other people can just relate, learn something, hopefully, be inspired. I think that's a lot of what draws me to podcasts like yours, is hearing inspiring stories. And so I would just encourage folks to be willing to also share their own stories with others, and it's a great way to find connection, and I think that's really important in life.
Love it so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. This has been great. And yeah, let's so spread the joy, normalize the joy.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Helen.
And where is the best place for people to get in touch with you? Would it be by any chance LinkedIn?
It would be LinkedIn. It would be only LinkedIn. And yes, LinkedIn is a great way. So yes.
Right.
So we'll feel free to reach out, connect, and yeah, happy to do that.
We'll put the link in the show notes. And I do recommend to Sasika podcast listeners, just go and read Aramide's posts, because they're just great. They're just so inspiring. And it's like, it gets crazy because she picks these topics that so many people can identify with. And so do go and read, enjoy, and like, and all of that sort of thing. Thank you so much. So thank you, Aramide. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This has been great. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.